In today's episode of the Pathway Presents podcast, I got a very interesting guest here with me today. I'm with Wille, who's hailing over from Marq. And at Marq, they're basically, if you head over to the website, marq.com, you will see they're the number one brand templating platform. So branding is really key. A lot of marketers actually a lot of marketers who are listening to the show, they may join new companies, or they're sometimes in smaller marketing teams, sometimes in larger marketing teams. And, brand always becomes an issue. Very often we see website redesigns as part of that. So we want to really figure out, what Marq is all about and how you guys can benefit from it. So Mike, welcome to the show. Of
Thanks. Appreciate it, Lucas. Good to be here.
course. Yeah. So maybe give people like a quick overview. What is Marq all about in your own words?
Sure, absolutely. I think the closest comparison that a lot of people have is a lot of people have used Canva before to design things and create things. Marq is a little bit like Canva for business. So essentially, people can create things either in our own platform or bring things that they've created in other places. But what sets us apart is that we're able to make sure that things are on brand, that they can be personalized. We have sort of data automation features that allow people to basically work on a team, collaborate, but make sure that things like the logo are consistent, that the branding colors are consistent, and also save time. Just if you want to make a series of Facebook ads or whatever, you can do that by just simply editing the text and keeping that template in place. So that's essentially what it does in a nutshell.
Makes a lot of sense. Now, you mentioned it's for business. Is there a specific, size, a scale where it starts making sense? Are we talking small businesses, large businesses, enterprise? Like, where does, Marq really sit?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. We kind of run the spectrum, honestly. We've got a large amount of we have two segments. We have the self-serve segment of our company where it's more product-led growth, and those range from just solo people to, but mostly small teams, 5 people, 10 people, whatever it is. And then we have this other segment that's more enterprise, and we have Coldwell Banker on there and other large companies in a much larger scale. So really runs the gamut.
Very cool. Now, how do these folks learn about Marq? Like, what's the journey that they're going through? In other words, what are the client acquisition channels you guys have been leveraging?
Yeah, absolutely. The biggest channel that we get people through is organic. Honestly, our website, we've done a lot of work on SEO. Making sure that the website is optimized for higher quality content and things like that. But word of mouth definitely plays a role. We also have a fairly large presence in a number of events in certain industries. For example, in the real estate industry, we're there at basically every major event, and so. But yeah, a lot of it centers on organic and word of mouth.
Very cool. Now, when we're talking about, people discovering you, what role do you think the website plays? As a marketer, how do you think about sort of, the website as a part of their journey?
Yeah, great question. The website is hugely important. I think it plays two really important roles. I mean, a lot of people like to compare the website to, this salesperson who's just working 24/7. And I absolutely believe that. Have a background in conversion rate optimization for a while, ran a consultancy. And so that's very much a part of my, DNA. But it also attracts people there. It can pull people in. You address and talk about the right things on the website. People can find you through that website. And so if it did any one of those things as effectively as it can and does, I think it would be the most important channel. But given that it does both of those things, I don't think there's a lot out there that can compete with how effective a website can be if it's taken to its full potential.
I like how you sort of phrase that, because that also shows that it can be, but it's not always does. I mean, you mentioned you had the conversion background, conversion rate optimization background. Like, what have you learned over the years? When it comes to, if we're talking about sort of B2B buying journey experiences, what's something that you've learned when it comes to actually having effective websites that drive results?
Yeah, no, great question. I think one of there's two pieces that, I mean, this could be broadly applied to really any channel, but I in context of the website specifically, it's about timing and relevance. If you can bring the right thing to someone in a way that gets their attention or is novel, I mean, that's all that marketing ever has been from the beginning. And some people might be familiar with, the law of shitty click-throughs that Andrew Chen had coined. And, you just kind of go through this cycle where you do the same thing. And like banner ads used to have like an 80% click-through rate or something ridiculous. And nowadays they're so bad that we have a phenomenon called banner blindness, where it's like literally like almost no one even sees it anymore. And so I think a lot of marketing and growth is just playing this game between how do we make sure that we have a relevant, valuable message, but how do we also make sure that it comes across to people in a way that is novel and that they notice and we get their attention. And so I think on websites, making sure that you're talking about, like, when someone lands on the page, one, just on the basics, you should know who is the website for, what does it do, and why should someone choose you over, any other competitors. And if you can get their attention for, that 5 seconds, well, that draws them in to be able to start building up, a greater interest or desire, the whole AIDA framework. But the way that we do that, I think, changes over time. Like people, like in content, for example, it was enough to stand out just to write content and give it away. We're long past that, that point. But then it was like, well, we need comprehensive content. And then it became more like, well, you need infographics. And now there's a stronger pull towards like interactive content. People love to interact with things and website. And so anyways, I think it's just making sure that you're aware of what you're competing with and how you can stand out. And then ultimately making sure that those timeless principles of, novelty and value and relevance are there in whatever form and tool or what platform, that might be taking shape.
Very cool. Now, I would like to switch gears as we sort of slowly approaching the end of this rapid and short and crisp episode today. I would love to talk with you a little bit about your daily work as a marketer. What would be things that you've been, deep diving on a daily business at the moment?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of those things is the quantitative and qualitative side of research and understanding users. I think that's crucial. I think the most important thing, like the biggest mistake anyone can make is not executing. And so any execution is better. Don't delay, don't wait till things are perfect. But at the same time, if you can, like, your judgment can be the biggest lever. And so for me, like, we're executing on a number of things for our product-led growth side. So day to day, I'll be figuring out A/B tests, figuring out conversion copy. I use Chat GPT pretty extensively to help me to generate. I'm a mediocre coder, but with Chat GPT, I'm actually pretty decent. And so just using those tools to be able to get to these insights and get to this rapid pace of experimentation as fast as possible. Some of that comes down to knocking down barriers, finding contractors to help us with things that we're maybe moving a little bit slower than, because we have a small team, as a lot of startups do. But yeah, that's where my attention has been, and figuring out how can we drive happiness in the product, because at the end of the day, what scales companies in the long run is word of mouth and people just being happy and spending more with you over time. Jason Lemkin wrote this article about, the 50-20 rule. And I expanded on that on recently on my blog, where because I've been really drilling down into how can we measure and how can we create this environment where when someone comes in, we get two people in the end, and so that 50-20 rule, I think, has been really top of mind for me and behind why we're wanting to drive this better understanding of customers and what makes them happy and what makes them convert.
Awesome, very cool. There's one thing I always like to ask marketers, which is, if you could snap your finger, right? And there's one thing that would taken off your plate, one task, one repetitive thing, one thing that is, just annoying as a marketer. What would that be?
Oh man, that's a good question. I'll have to think about that one for a second.
We can circle back to it, no worries.
Yeah. I think it would probably center around something like figuring out the day-to-day tasks. I automate a lot of stuff. And so a lot of the time I'll take those things off my plate when they come up. But I think finding customer insights on the regular, that's been a pain point, and figuring out the ability to get the right interview scheduled and or find the work in the customer journey. I recently set up an automation to, when someone signs up, that we can enrich their email and get info for. we use product analytics, Amplitude, and I created this automation that creates links where we can look and find the relevant steps in their journey and understand them better. But even then, it just takes a lot of time to find that and to kind of put those all together. And so that's been a pain point, and just being able to understand a little bit better the patterns and the aha moments and like the pain points and drop-offs. That I think that would be the thing that I would snap my fingers like, oh, okay, I understand this better.
Very cool. Very last question. If today would be your very first day joining Marq, what's the one advice you would give yourself for that journey?
I think it would have to be to take other people along for the journey. I am very much a execution person and thinking about strategy and execution and process, but sometimes you have to take a step back and talk to other people on your in your company and evangelize what the role of growth is. And I think the reason for that is that you can get some of the best insights and ideas from other departments and other people. And so if they understand, how your role works, they can understand how to contribute to it. And I think that I wish I would have taken a step back to do that more, instead of just jumping into just doing the things that need to be done.
Awesome. Thanks a lot for being a guest on the show, Mike.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks, Lucas.